Let's talk about a couple of stud players that are not exactly at their peak right now. If you make the right offer, then who knows, you might land yourself a stud. If you love watching baseball and playing fantasy baseball, you probably love playing MLB The Show on PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch. Well, the best place to get those stubs without paying full price is MMOAH.com. On top of their already discounted price, you get an extra 5% off by using code ENDGAME. You can build your perfect Diamond Dynasty even faster by clicking the link in the description below and using our promo code. Let's start with ace of the Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez looked like anything but his last outing. Gave up a season worst 7 earned runs, and it was against the Nationals, no less. Look, every pitcher has a bad outing here and there, but now his ERA is ballooned up to 4.72. It's not what we expected from someone who was drafted like an ace. It's coming off his best season ever. Now, obviously, I'm not too worried about his performance so far because, honestly, when you look under the hood here, he's pitching pretty much like he did last year. And also, the ERA is the only thing you really have to be worried about. His whip is a pretty solid 1.12. He's got 63 Ks to only 9 walks, one of the lowest walk rates among all qualified starters. His expected slugging rate is a full 44 points lower than his actual slugging rate. If you want to just talk ERA, well, again, it doesn't mean everything, but his expected ERA is much lower than his actual ERA at 3.14. And he is still punching out batters. I always say one of the key metrics I look for in a pitcher is that K minus BB rate. The differential between strikeouts and walks percentage-wise, his is still really high, 23.9%. You look across his entire profile, the only thing that might be slightly concerning is the hard hit and the barrel rate especially, but actually that's always been his thing. Even last year in his best season, barrel rate wasn't great either. Occasionally, yeah, he'll give up that hard hit, but he knows how to get the strikeout when it counts. Really, the outcomes just haven't been as good as they should be, and when you have a pitcher like this who's coming off of his worst performance, that's when some panic starts to set in among his owners. Some people might be a little more willing to part with him. You're still going to have to give up a frontline starter, don't get me wrong, but look, for example, I'll say a guy like Ronher Suarez of Philadelphia. Can't take anything away from his amazing start, but if you ask me rest of the season, who would I rather have, Suarez in Philly or Pablo Lopez in Minnesota? I'm still going to go Lopez. So you probably have some overachieving pitchers that you can trade out for a guy like Lopez. Give me Lopez. Now, on the other hand, you have a young pitcher who has been lights out all season, and that hasn't changed. So why would there be a buy low window on Mason Miller of Oakland? Well, simply, he's a closer who's not getting saves. A guy who's supposed to be the closer, a guy who was red hot, got 8 saves just in April, and now all of a sudden, none at all. Has he lost the job? Got some questions about Miller just on our last live stream. People wondering what's going on here. Should I be worried? And the answer is no. You should be wishing that he was on another team than Oakland, which is not going to happen. But this is the problem, is he's an A, and they have not been winning. In fact, that's the whole issue here, is not only has he not been getting saved, because it's not possible to get a save when your team doesn't win, he hasn't even made many appearances in May. It seems like they're kind of letting him rest, and that's a smart thing because obviously one of the hardest throwers in the majors we've seen, the epidemic of arm injuries here to pitchers. So I actually like this load management thing for Miller. Now, you don't like it if he's on your fantasy team, but it's nothing with him specifically that should concern you as far as performance. But it really is kind of bizarre how he was out there every other day getting saves, looking like the best closer in the game, and all of a sudden there was a 10-day stretch this past month where he only made 1 appearance. This whole month has been truly bizarre for Oakland, a team that, of course, was in last place, expected to be in last place. Then they went on a random winning streak, got up to 500, and then all of a sudden they lost 8 games in a row, and this coincides with Miller kind of falling off in terms of fantasy relevance. And it actually all started after Star Wars Day, May the 4th, which is really weird. On that particular day, they won 20-4. And after hitting that peak, I guess they just used up all their good mojo because then they only won twice in the next 15 games. And in fact, right after that 20-4 win on May 4th, they wound up giving up 55 runs just in the next week together. Their pitching staff was just getting absolutely lit up. It's not just that they weren't getting wins or close wins, they weren't even close to possibly getting a win. So they're saving Miller, but he's still been lights out. An ERA under 1, and I know I usually refer to K percentage, but just for frame of reference here, you talk about K per 9, strikeout per 9 innings. Hypothetically, if he were a starter and were to go to a complete game, how many strikeouts would he get? Mason Miller this season has a 17.69 K per 9. So that means he'd be striking out about 2 batters for each inning. So should you worry about Miller? Absolutely not. He's still dominant. Numbers are great. Should you be happy that he's not getting saves? Well, no, but he's going to eventually start getting saves again. He's not losing the job. It's just a matter of bad luck. It happens to every closer. So at this point, look, he's still got more saves than a couple of other guys out there in other teams. So if somebody's just frustrated here, just needs the saves, maybe they're willing to take your not as dominant closer who does have saves in exchange for Mason Miller. Right now is prime time. Now offensively, you could make a case that every Cincinnati Red is at a buy low except for maybe Ella De La Cruz because, man, there's no highs here with Cincinnati lately. They are struggling just to get by through the season. Injuries, underachievement across the board. One of their bright spots so far had been Spencer Steer. Came up with his career best year last season and got off to a really strong start again in 2024. But man, lately it just seems like he's going down with the ship, and a lot of this happened just in the past week. In fact, over a 4-game stretch, his average tanked down to 224. He went 0 for 15 just in those 4 games. And then an ankle injury cropped up. Now he's missed a couple of games, so sitting on the sidelines. This is when you look at the big picture and you have a guy who the batting average is not good at 224. Now all of a sudden we have injuries, a really bad offense that's underachieving. And he's only got 4 home runs too. So you're left wanting a lot more. And you're thinking maybe, okay, not benchable because he is still driving in runs. He is stealing bases. But overall, it's not a guy who seems like a fantasy stud. I would take Steer on my team because, like I said, he had been hitting really well just until recently. Maybe the ankle has been playing a part. Who knows what happened that bad stretch. But look, batting average, I think will be fine. The power should come around. Not that you should be expecting huge home run totals, but still the fact that he does have those 11 steals helps, and he's driving in runs. In fact, 31 RBIs. A lot of that because he does have a nice spot in the lineup. He's usually hitting either 3rd or 4th. And to bring up K minus BB again, this time on the hitting front, you want it really, really low when you're a hitter, so it's 4.2%. He walks a lot and he barely strikes out, and that's a recipe for success. Look, even in shallow leagues, I don't think anybody's ready to move on and just cut Steer because of this, but I do know this is the time that you can make a buy low trade offer. Now I'm going to go back to Brandon Nimmo again. A couple of weeks ago said that he was a very obvious buy low. And it's really the same case because he remains the biggest underachiever in terms of discrepancy between expected batting average and actual batting average. He's hitting 218 on the season right now, very un-Nimmo-like, but his XBA is 294. This is also a hitter who just in the course of 1 week has seen his fortunes fall. He went 0 for 4, 3 straight games, and then had 2 straight DNPs. And then when he did come back to the lineup, he was dropped from his usual leadoff spot, and now it seems like he's hitting 3rd. Gotta wonder, is this something that they're trying to get him going? Maybe a case where Francisco Lindor, who's also been struggling bad, still barely hitting under 200, and now he's been moved to the leadoff spot. Maybe they're trying to get him going too. Maybe they're just trying to shake up this entire offense, see what can work. Well, it sort of worked. I mean, Nimmo now does have a base hit in 4 straight games. And he did get a home run a couple of days ago. He scored 5 runs, so we're at least seeing some production from him. Hey, Lindor had 2 hits tonight, so we'll see if this continues to be something. And now the bottom of the order is trying to give them some production. If they can get guys like Mark Vientos going, maybe some of those outfielders they mix and match. Either way, Nimmo is a veteran, a quality hitter, professional hitter, as they say. I don't think it matters so much if he hits 1st or 3rd. I do like the leadoff spot better, of course, for his run-scoring potential. But hey, he's still hitting in front of guys like Pete Alonso, JD Martinez. That's pretty nice. And maybe he can drive in some more runs here. So I think Nimmo's value is still very low. You can scoop him on the cheap. That regression, the positive regression is going to happen eventually. So buy into him now before he does go on a heater. This may not be a popular pick. I know a lot of people are just dying for the chance to drop or get rid of Spencer Torkelson. Take advantage if that's the case. Maybe get him on the cheap from somebody else. I do think that eventually he will get it going, and there are some signs. Hey, at least he's hit some home runs now. Now, this is the unusual case where I will say it's not a matter of regression coming. In fact, kind of the opposite. Despite the fact his batting average right now is sitting at 218, that's actually overachieving. His expected batting average is 193, so he should be doing worse. But look, let's be honest. Do we really care about batting average torque? No, you're not getting that. Even last year, his breakout season, which, let me remind you, was his first full season as a starter in the bigs. Remember, this guy's only 24 years old still. But even last year, in his very productive season, only hit 233. We want the homers, right? That's all we care about. So he's only got 3 on the season, but all of them have come since May the 12th. So we're talking about just a 10-day stretch there at this point. Look, that's not a ton. He's not exactly binging, but at least he's coming around. But also, remember from last year, this is exactly what happened. This is somebody who really came on mid-season. In fact, last year in April and May, he only hit 2 home runs in each of those months. So he's basically in the same pace here. Now, this doesn't guarantee that he will all of a sudden hit a ton of home runs in the middle of the season. It might not happen, but I would be willing to take a chance, especially when you can get him, I know, on the cheap right now. People are very frustrated because you're not getting average or power, not driving in a lot of runs. You're really getting nothing from him, and it almost feels like he's sinking your team. And so I get it, but again, you've got to stay patient sometimes. And I think at this point, it's worth betting on the talent. Again, this whole Tigers lineup is still kind of feeling things out. I do feel they're, as a whole, kind of underachieving, but whether they get it going or not, Torkelson, again, it's a one-man job to hit a home run, right? If he can figure it out and start to get some more long balls on that profile, you'll be happy that you managed to get him. I'm expecting those players to turn things around. Right now look like great values in the trade market. Now, when we talk about some of these players, it's not that simple. These are players that you're probably panicking about.